They used me to get to my dad. And I'm pissed. Hello, I'm Gillian. Welcome to The Conscious Gooder. On this show, it's always about health, or actually wisdom, health, and beauty, by any means necessary. Today, I want to say we're focusing not only on health, but wisdom, as I share with you why I have been absent, at least for the last couple of months. It has been my intention to revive this podcast since January, actually. But one thing has led to another, that led to another, and finally my father's murder, which I want to talk about today. Why? Because I don't want it to happen to you or someone that you love. As we mostly know, COVID-19 was created in a laboratory. And it is a biological weapon, a really good one. Millions of people have died. Thought we had a handle on it with vaccines and boosters and whatnot, but I caught COVID at the very, very end of April. And unfortunately, when I caught it, or when I realized I had it, I was at my parents' home here, and my dad contracted it, and I got better in 3 days, like really fast. Like it was nothing. It was like a little bit of diarrhea, which for me, always trying to lose weight, that's a beautiful thing. And then it turned into a slight fever by the next day, and then by the next day it was sniffles. And that's when I went, wait a minute, what? I thought I had food poisoning, and now I got the sniffles. And so I was downstairs where my room is, and I asked my mom, their bedroom was back this way, I said, could you throw me down a COVID test? So she threw one down, I took it, and I was positive. And within a few days after that, let me see, I guess 2 or 3 days later, my dad started coughing. That was on Tuesday, he started coughing. Sunday, I discovered that I had it positive, and I got out of here as fast as I could, but the damage was already done. I ran around with an N95 on. I'm like, oh shit, put this on, run around disinfecting with Lysol and whatnot, everything that I thought I could possibly, that I had touched downstairs. And then I just told them, don't go downstairs, you know. They ultimately did. After I left, I remember leaving within an hour of my positive diagnosis, and I'm like, I love you guys, I love my family. And my dad's like, we love you too, babe. He always says, I love you too, babe, we love you too. And that was the last time that I would hear him healthy again. A couple of days later, because I kept calling, I'm like, yo, how you guys doing? Are you, any symptoms or anything? No symptoms, no symptoms. And then on Tuesday, my dad started coughing and had a little diarrhea. But I'm like, coughing? Diarrhea, I get. Coughing, no. I wanted him to just get what I got and be done with it. By the next day, he had a slight fever, was still coughing, was very weak, and he had passed out in the hallway after coming back from getting mail. And I'm like, oh my God. So I encouraged my mom to please, now, call the doctor, please, now. And I'm just gonna say, no, I'm not gonna say. There's a hospital medical system that just frustrates me right now. Kaiser, I'm gonna just say it. Damn it. And I need to speak to the doctor who was in charge of my dad in ICU that night, that day, the last day. And I have to actually go down there in order just to put a message in that I need to speak with him, because otherwise I can't find which Dr. Shaw was that. Their computer systems. Anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about right now. Really, that's the least of it. So my dad was coughing, fever. My mom called, got someone on the phone who said that he needs to be taken to urgent care right now. And she also asked, is he wheezing? And he was wheezing. I guess that's a bad sign. So now I'm in LA and I'm like, oh my God, they need a ride to urgent care and I'm not there and my mom can't drive. My dad shouldn't drive. And I don't want to ask anybody like the next door neighbor, because my dad's got COVID, right? I'm like, oh my God, it should be me. But I wasn't there, so I encouraged them to call a taxi because they don't have Lyft or Uber. They call a taxi. They take him to urgent care. My dad passes out, I think, twice in the cab. So the guy knew he needed to step on it. So they get him to urgent care. Meanwhile, I'm getting in my car in Los Angeles. And thank you, God, it only took 2 hours, which is amazing because it can take 3 and 4 for me to get there. And I got there at about 7:30 when they were coming out of urgent care. The sun was just like setting. So I got there right in the nick of time. Thank you. I feel so good about that. My dad was in a wheelchair. My mom was pushing him. That's not normal. But they both had smiles. They were so happy to see me, and I was so grateful to have made it there and to be able to be their ride. And now, I got you. I'm here for you, right? So we get them into my car and drive home here about 20 minutes. And I pull into the driveway, and I'm probably about 15 feet. Like from the car to the porch is about 15 feet. My dad walks that 15 feet, and he's about to pass out again. He gets up on the porch, leans back against a wall, and just slides down. He knew this was going to happen. We're like, oh my God. My mom slaps him back to consciousness. She's an RN, but she's been now doing this with him. He passes out, she brings him back. He passes out, she brings him back. While she's also saying stuff like, don't leave me now, don't leave me now, Leroy, don't leave me now. And we get him inside. She gets him into pajamas and stuff. He's laying in bed and he's playing like poker on his phone. And I go downstairs to my office, which is underneath their bedroom. Underneath their bathroom, actually. Next to their bedroom. And all of a sudden, I hear the biggest kaboom above me. I got a bad knee, but I ran. Back into the house, which is another key into a door, through the bottom, up the stairs, like it was nothing. And my dad is on the floor. And he's kind of moaning. He's trying to articulate, but it's coming out like a moan. Would make you think maybe that was a stroke, but it wasn't. It was a heart thing. It was not getting enough oxygen. I have the phone now in my hand, the house landline. I've pressed 911. I'm like, Mom, 911, right? And my dad articulates very well, I'm not going anywhere. And my mom is like, okay, he says he's not going anywhere. And I have to make the decision on my own. And I'm looking, and my dad is helpless. He's helpless, and he's on the floor. I'm not used to seeing him that way. I press the next one, and I walk out of the room. And I talk to the folks on 911 about my dad being unconscious for a minute, but now he's back, and now we're trying to get him back in bed, and he's passed out repeatedly. They send an ambulance. I tell the ambulance people, don't take the gurney. Just you two come on in. And so they did. And while they were talking to my dad and hooked him up to an EKG and whatnot, he passed out again. And this time they see a little blip on the EKG. what I'm getting is that, COVID attacks your weaknesses, your weak areas. And it also does have particular organs that it likes to attack just in general, your heart, kidneys, lungs. So they advised my dad that it'd be best if he, come to the hospital and let folks observe him. And I was like, good, they'll fix my dad. It's 2023. We've had COVID for 3 years. We can fix this. We get to the hospital, and now he's in emergency. And I'm with him in emergency for 6 hours. During that time, his breathing became more and more labored. It was so hard for him to breathe. It was like, he was running. But that short inhale was all he could get. That's all the inhale he could do. And he was sweating. And the panic of not being able to breathe. And then they were doing things and giving him stuff. He had so many IVs going in. And this nurse, there was this nurse who really got on my nerves. She was going on and on and on about why, I'm not kidding, that's why I only got the one vaccine. The vaccine that they required we take, that's the only one I got. I'm not getting the rest. I've seen a bunch of people vaccinated, boosted, and they come in here and they're just like this. And I'm like, in my head, biatch, can you positive up your talk right now? And I muttered out, you helped them, right? She said, yes, some. Like, could you be any more negative right the bleep now? I have a problem with that. I'll be talking to Kaiser about that, but unfortunately, I can't talk to him on the phone. I got to go down there. Anyway, coagulating. There's so many things that happen, and some of you who follow me on Facebook know that my dad's rings were taken, and returned, and odd. I will talk to Kaiser about that too. Their procedure went terribly awry. Anyway, so 6 hours in, and now I know I have COVID, but I don't have any symptoms anymore. I'm good. I was just supposed to quarantine for another 3 days or so. But my dad, so I had no problem being with him, and I loved that I was there with him, and anything he needed, like he was coughing up this stuff, so I would grab the tissues for him, and I had no problem with, taking them, the ones that he coughed up, and throwing the trash can. I just did not care. I'd wash my hands later to protect my mom. Mom never, by the way, got not one symptom, never tested positive. I was in her face with it. When I didn't know I had COVID, one night I was like, Mom, do I have a fever? I mean, I'm all up in her space. And then my dad, they slept in the same bed. She didn't get anything. So, now they make me leave because they don't know I have COVID, and my dad and I kept that quiet so that I could stay. I felt that they would make me leave if they knew that I was COVID positive. And then they tested him too, and they said, okay, if you leave, thinking that I'm COVID negative, if you leave, you can't come back. So that was another indication that because I would have contracted or been near COVID by being with him, now all of a sudden they wouldn't let me come back. So the fact that I was COVID positive probably would have shooed me. I'm so glad we didn't do that. I am so grateful to Spirit for letting me have these sacred 6 hours that I got to spend with my dad, because now he tells me he's starting to feel sick again, and this means he's going to pass out. So I immediately hit the door. I'm like, my dad's about to pass out. I turn around, he's passed out. She's in there right then. And then right then, they're like, code blue. He flatlined. And from outside the room, I'm watching all this stuff. They're flailing around, and I see the motion of CPR on my dad. This whole thing went down like he'd never been vaccinated, like he had never been boosted. It went down like what we heard about in 2020 in the beginning. So I'm like, what the actual hell? So they roll him up to ICU now, and I have to go. I did have some words with my dad, thank goodness. We talked like nothing happened afterwards. But I know that in his head, he understood what happened and what could potentially happen, and he knew what could potentially happen, and he knew more that I would find out later. I also downloaded a lot of information later from my dad via mediumship and telepathy and everything else that I am gifted with. And I know that at that moment when I left my dad, he knew that there was a chance that this was the last time he would see me. I didn't know that though. I figured I'd go get Mom, we'd come back the next day, we'd hang out with him, and if it's another day that he'd be in the hospital, fine, but we would bring him home. That's what I thought. So by the time I got back here, it was 6 a.m. And right around 7:30 a.m., my mom's phone rang. We got a call that my dad had had another heart failure, and they brought him back. And they were ventilating him. I think that's when they announced the ventilator. And so that meant he'd gone through 2 difficult hours while I was gone. And I prayed that they calmed him and stuff. I know that he had tremendous anxiety, tremendous fear during this period. 9:30, we get a call from another doctor, Dr. Shaw, who's the one I want to talk to about my dad's last hours. And he tells us that basically we need to come say goodbye. We need to make a decision because my dad's being kept alive with the ventilator and all of the tubes and whatnot, which is not what my dad wanted. He specifically wrote, if I gotta be tubes and all that stuff, please just let me go. So we went to say goodbye to my dad. That was May 4th. I don't want to cry during this, so hold on a second. On May 4th, on the news, I got to watch them say, we are now safe from COVID. On the very day of my father's last breath. Really? Really? And I didn't know what to do. Like, what do I do? What do we do? My own doctor, I texted him. I'm like, I just feel like I killed my dad. I gave him COVID, you know? And he's like, don't think like that. You didn't kill your father, blah, blah. And, 87 reacts to COVID different than, younger people. But in the last 2 days, I'm hearing doctors on the news say the COVID that is circulating right now is not the same COVID that was circulating in 2020 and 2021 and 2022. And as a matter of fact, there is no vaccination yet for the current COVID. Well, that explains it. That explains it. And why I got better so fast, because I take a lot of weird stuff. I will write in the box below, whether this is on Facebook, whether this is on whatever channel that you find my podcasts on, or YouTube, in the box, I will jot down the kind of stuff that I take. And my mom takes the same stuff. And my dad was always like, no, that's okay. I'll pass on the occassionally, whatever you call it. So anyway, we are pretty much where we were in 2020. I am starting up a website to honor my dad's legacy. But part of doing that is a movement that I hope to begin, where I encourage people to be careful. Because even if you're young and you're okay, oh, and let me just back up this new COVID, this new strain. Can I? XBB.1.5 or XBB.1.6. And actually, there's a list of XBBs. This new strain with no vaccination for it. And it is stronger and more contagious than the previous strains, Omicrons and all that, Deltas and whatnot. Way more. And I understand this one is most dangerous to the elderly and babies. So I have this whole thing where I'm just, because it was made in a laboratory, and I know that, my going on and on and on, which I do intend to do on and on and on, about the folks who created this. I mean, come on now. We don't talk about that part. This is why I say my dad was murdered. Now, for a while, I was feeling guilty. I am feeling guilty still. I feel I was negligent. I was. Since 2020, we've known what to do. Stay, space conscious. Gyms are open again. If you're going to go to a gym, my gosh, wipe down your equipment before you use it, or be sure that you don't touch your hands to your face, because now you're touching all kinds of stuff that a bazillion other people have touched. And what do? It's so ironic. I was longing to do a photo shoot with my dad, because he's just always just so gorgeous. And I just wanted that, but I wanted to get skinnier. So I got into this rhythm spinning thing, rhythm cycling. Oh my God. I'm going to put notes below on where you can check out what I checked out and why it's just so awesome. Anyway, I find places where that's happening. And there's one place where I had a membership, and I'm not going to call them out because this could have happened anywhere. And this is a great place. It's one of the best cycling places ever. But that's where I was when I caught it. I didn't wipe down my bike. And then you're sweating like a crazy person. I mean, you're burning 500 to 800 calories per hour. And I was like, oof, 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 oof. And I caught it. And then it took 3 days or so for me to get a symptom. So then the diarrhea happened. I thought it was food poisoning from something I'd cooked. I'm not going to do the story again, but, there you go. So the folks who made this designed it to do what it does. It's designed, this particular, first of frickin' all, biological warfare has been going on in terms of documentation. We've got documentation of it happening back in the 1300s. This was not the first. COVID's not the first, not the last, probably, unfortunately. And my message is that we're in a new world right now. It's different. It's way sci-fi. It's more sci-fi than you think. And it's a dangerous place. This biosphere is dangerous. And they designed this deadly cootie so that we would work against each other. So human nature would work against itself. Our natural thing is companionship, but to be close. And in this family, we're all hugs and love. So yeah, if one has it, they're going to spread it to the next one. They used me to get to my dad. And I'm pissed. Without question, I don't know when I'm going to relieve that. I don't know that I'm even going to go for trying to find forgiveness for that. I don't feel to do that right now. I'm just fine being pissed off at not only the idiot minions who went in the laboratory and created this, but the one who ordered it. One person thought of this. Create this thing. And then their committee, their team, their whatever, they Should we make this thing? Yes, make this thing. Tell the laboratory to make this thing. Yo, make the thing. Hey, we've been told to make the thing. Let's make the thing, y'all. I do know that there were reports that I heard about in 2022 about some of the folks, officials, American and some other countries, but there's a doctor in America who I personally still thank for helping us, but I'm just not going to say his name right now. If it's rolling off your head, fine. But there's this report that came out, and there was like a report about a recording where you hear him, and he's basically talking about the laboratory creation of this thing and that they shouldn't do it. And what I understood from this report was that he was like, you guys need to stop working on this virus thing that you're making. So it's like it was known that this was created. I knew that, and I appreciate that he was trying to get it to stop, but it didn't stop. And then it was leaked by accident. I actually believe that that is what happened. It was an accident. But here we are. It got out, and it's not the first one. As I understand it, there are some SARS and things from before that were created specifically to harm and kill humans. That's where we are right now. And if you want to stay safe and you want to protect your family, especially the ones who have weaknesses within their body that you may know about and that you don't know about, that this COVID will like to show you, you want to stay safe and get conscious again. I had been slacking, and I will never slack again. I am so conscious. I still have my mom, and I want to keep her as long as I can. Every time she coughs, she's coughing back there right now, but she does that once in a while, and she gets so mad at me. Because I'm like, what was that? She's fine. But anyway, masks when you're around a lot of people. If you don't have to be around a lot of people, don't. I miss cycling. I loved it. But I don't feel like I can do that again. Even though I thought it through, all you got to do is take, Lysol disinfectant wipes or whatever, and wipe down your bike, wipe down the equipment you're going to use, and then use it. And then stay conscious of the fact that your hands are on stuff maybe you didn't get every piece. Because this cootie is invisible and it's teeny weeny eensy beensy. And it will kill you and your family, those that you love. That's what happened to me. So I'm back. And I think I will be touching on COVID from here and there and whatnot. My intention when I revived the Conscious Cougar podcast was to start by, talking about being a cougar and everything, but I don't feel to do that right now. Next podcast, though, is going to be on something I've talked about before, but now I know this particular thing from a new angle. It is anticipatory grief syndrome, which I personally have experienced since I was 5 years old, I remember. I will share that with you. I have now talked to at least a few clinical psychologists about this syndrome. And though we don't see a whole lot about it online, it is real and happens to so many people. And I will give you my feedback on it, tell you what it is, and how to relieve yourself of it. Because the real grief is coming, and the anticipatory grief doesn't help. I really don't think it helps. I think that's my story for now, you guys. I'd love to hear from you. You can always write me at theconsciouscougar@gmail.com. Also visit my website, which is about to be new. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for hearing my story. And I would love your comments and feedback always. And that's it for now. Wishing you a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time. The Conscious Cougar, over and out.